Good morning, everybody, and happy early morning Tuesday. So excited that you can join us here this morning. We are here for episode 233 of the On Air Advocate. Where the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate. And I am super excited if you are here this early morning joining us, or whether you are catching this on the replay. Now, as always, if you think any of the content we could be talking about today could be relevant for anyone in your network, your circle, please hit the share button and share the love with others on whatever social media application you are watching this on. Now, as you guys may have already heard, it is National Family Caregivers Month. And I am super excited to have here with us today Nicole Dauz. She is a self-care expert, and we know that self-care is so important, especially during these times. So welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Tammy. So happy to be here.
So happy to have you. This is your first time on the platform. And so I'm excited for you to share a little bit about your background and yourself before we dive in.
Okay, thank you. So I'm up in Ottawa, Canada, and I am the proud mother of two kids. My son Jordan is 14, and my daughter Summer is 11, and she has a rare genetic disease and autism diagnosis. And that means I've been a caregiver for 11 years. For the first 5 years, I was in survival mode and in shock as I processed at the time that my daughter would need, weekly therapy to learn how to walk, how to dress herself, and even learn how to feed herself. And so during that time, unknowingly, I was just burying all of my emotions and really focusing on how do I survive. And after about 5 years, my body just started letting me know that it was just too much and that I was taking on too much. And so I started getting physical manifestations, and my body kind of started breaking down on me with, mysterious rashes, or ending up in the hospital for the doctors to tell me that I was perfectly fine and there was nothing wrong with me. So that was a big aha moment, me realizing that there are no doctors who specialize in supporting parents who have children with special needs, and then realizing that I was responsible for taking care of myself. And, yes, that's one more thing to add to our list, but really accepting that this was going to be a lifelong journey, taking care of my daughter. And if at 5 years old, I was already feeling the impacts, that I needed to take radical responsibility for my own well-being. And once I started doing that and feeling better, I really fell in love with the entire, well-being and taking care of myself. And then I just wanted to share it with people, because I think when you learn that you have a choice, and that making small daily actions can have huge impacts in your overall well-being, for me, it's just a win-win for everyone.
Yes, and I don't know if I put up the post or not yet, but I've done a lot of research over the last couple of years on caregivers, and I was just speaking about this on Sunday when we launched this with my friend Sabrina, is that in the space of saying the word caregiver, so many people think that when we say caregiver, that we are speaking to someone that's taking care of their elderly loved one. And statistics show that, and they've only done studies on that within that 3 to 5 year median that you're taking care of your elderly loved one, 70% of those caregivers need to seek serious mental help. It's 6:30 in the morning here. Mental health help out there. And so I always say to myself, if 70% of people who are caregivers for only 3 to 5 years of their life need counseling, intense mental health help after that process, what does that mean for these lifelong caregivers? And who is supporting them? And why aren't there statistics, on all of us that are in this for the long run? And so, Nicole, I love the things that you are doing, putting self-care as the most important. Number one.
Thank you so much, because I think you've really highlighted, and as we were talking earlier, it's I've had people say, well, I don't like the word self-care. And I'm just like, let's not focus on the red herring. Like, let's talk
Mhm.
about the real issue. Like,
Yeah.
don't tell me you don't like the word self-care.
Yeah.
Tell me why you don't think you're worthy of taking care of yourself. Because that's really what I dive into when I work with people.
Yeah.
It's so easy for you to say, oh, I'm just going to ignore her because, she must have it easy.
Mhm.
Um, no, I think it's really honoring yourself and really also accepting the role. And that sounds so simple, but I think because we're parents, we're like, well, no, it's just what we do. My daughter has an intellectual disability. Of course, I'm going to support her. But what I really work with people is to focus on who they are first. So I've been Nicole for 47 years. I've been a mom for 14 and a caregiver for 11. I want to honor Nicole. Yes, being a caregiver can feel very, I call it a cape, very heavy and even smothering sometimes. And it can feel like it takes up 100% of your energy. But I really want to encourage people to say it's okay. I want to honor myself. And when I
Yeah.
honor myself and when I show up as a better version of myself, that's the best gift that I can give my loved one. So whether you are a parent of a child with special needs, whether you are an adult who's taking care of an aging parent, or
Mhm.
whether you are a partner taking care of a sick spouse, adult taking care of a sick spouse, or even a
Mhm.
really good friend who's had an injury, that is the best gift that you can give everyone is by choosing to become a little more selfish with how you spend your time. And I think that is what's so hard for people. It's that the negative connotations of someone saying, oh, you're being selfish, aren't you?
Right. Right.
And that's not helpful. And so that's why I really love talking about this to say, I
Mhm.
want to give you permission. You are allowed to put yourself first in
Right.
any circumstance. Um, yeah.
Definitely. And Nicole, what resonated with me very much, and I would wonder, I know that in our interview segment, we don't do outside chat, but anyone who's listening this morning, let me know if you've experienced this. Because when you touched on the sense of going to the doctor and the doctor saying nothing is wrong with you, I think we may have spoke about in our first conversation. I had about 4 years that happened. My first time I was in church and I thought I was going to faint and I couldn't breathe. I had all my kids there. And I am like, what is going on? Do I need caffeine? Do I need a Coke? Do I need to leave? Do I need to drink something? And it just over the next few years escalated to the point of I actually was hospitalized. My son found me non responsive, passed
Oh,
out. And what they said is that you have worked yourself just like when musicians travel and they are just so burnt out, like they've expended, they have not slept, they have not done anything for themselves. They've put no fuel back in. And the doctors were like, you're going to break. Like you already broke because you're here admitted to the hospital. But there isn't anything wrong really with your heart. There isn't anything wrong with the chemistry in your body. You have just burnt every single, from your fingers to your toes, the
yeah.
candle completely out. You need to rejuvenate. And so since that day, that was 5 years ago, I have completely taken a different approach to the way that I do business and the way that I practice self-care. And when I know that as an adult, I need a timeout. So I don't know if other caregivers out there have experienced that, but Nicole, to know that you're in Canada, I'm here in Wisconsin, and we both went to the hospital because
Yeah. I mean,
something was wrong. And they said, nothing's wrong with you. It's right here.
yeah. Well, I mean, I really want to touch on that because I think people, see our smiling faces online and they're like, oh, they must be lucky caregivers. They don't face any challenges. And
Right.
um, I want to remind people that, or encourage people that we always have a choice. And for me, I choose happy. It's my North Star. Sometimes I can only choose a few moments of happy every day, but that's what I strive for because really we can choose happy or unhappy. And let me tell you, choosing happy is, the better, the better of the two options. But, this is a discussion that is optimistic, and it's really, I want it to be inspirational to caregivers. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate self-care. And that's what I really love sharing with people is that, doing self-care every day doesn't have to be hard. We can start with pockets of time of 15 minutes. We can do it from our own home. It doesn't need to cost any money. And I find when I break it down like that, it makes it so much more accessible to people. For me, self-care is anything that brings you joy. And I always say, as long as it's legal, right? I gotta put that out there. And we are in a global pandemic. We are in month 8. Ottawa has just gone back down to lockdown. It is -4 and it is cold. So everything that I'm sharing with you are the tools and strategies that I have been using because it is a mind game. And I know that to get through the next 5 months of a cold Canadian winter is going to take everything that I have. And so the next 5 self-care tips that I want to share with you, you can do wherever you want. If you're sitting on a sunny beach, God love you. I'm a little jealous, but you can still do these. The first one is breathing. And I know people always chuckle at this. You're like, oh, thanks, Nicole. I'm already breathing. But it's a self-awareness. And this kind of goes back to, what you were saying, Tammy, is even becoming self-aware of how our body's feeling. Our body is always talking to us. And I think that's been one of the most beautiful gifts that I've learned on my self-care journey is those first 5 years of caregiving. I ignored everything. And so my body just had to speak louder and more loudly until it just kind of crashed. And the same thing with our breath. If we can become self-aware that we take 5 or 10 minutes first thing in the morning and I don't call it, it's called box breathing. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out. And the beautiful thing with this one is you can choose 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, so you can build on it. And if you repeat that for just 5 times, you will lower your heart rate. You will calm your body automatically. And so I go to my breathing exercises quite often. If you find yourself sometimes getting a little anxious, like, oh my gosh, I have too much to do today. There's so much going on. There's all these appointments. How am I going to manage? Catch yourself. Take 5 deep breaths. And that's going to help just reset. Another great one is hugging. I'm a hugger.
And this pandemic. That's what I miss.
This is the thing. If we're caring for a loved one, we have someone to hug, mostly. Or if we have a partner and a friend. And the research that is coming out around hugging and the benefits is very similar to the breathing. It lowers our heart rate. We are human beings who love and crave connection. And if you can hug for even 10 seconds, it feels a little awkward at first, but then if you can combine the hugging and the breathing together, this is actually a tool that I use with my daughter. If she's getting really upset and I have to say, grab her, but hold on to her, I can say, now I'll give her the cue, we're going to breathe. And she may fight me at first, but once I start doing the deep breaths, then after a minute or 2, I can feel her body relax and she'll start breathing with me. And so again, it resets both of us. So that's the win-win. That's like a double self-care.
Those, and now I don't know statistically because they're on a meme. And so I don't know, believe everything on there, but it says that you need 4 hugs a day for survival. And what is it, like 6 or 8 a day for progress, and 12 a day to thrive. So I'm like 12 hugs a day.
And just start hugging yourself. I know. And that's another thing too for connection. I mean, I'm talking a lot about my daughter, but I have a son, and I've been so conscious of that. the impact of having a sibling with special needs is huge, and a topic for another day. But I hug my son every morning and every evening and a few times in between. And sometimes he'll kind of push me away because he's too cool for that. But at the same time, he knows the morning and the evening hugs are non-negotiable. And another one is I call it a control audit. And it really speaks to being aware. And especially now in COVID, this is not a regular November. So yes, we're talking about celebrating caregivers during National Family Caregivers Month. Trust me, I know this is 2020. But the control audit, just ask yourself two simple questions. What can I control and what can't I control? And you learn very easily that it's a really short list. So I can control my thoughts and I can control my actions/reactions. And everything else kind of goes under, oh, I can't control that. Crap. I spend a lot of energy on the list of things I can't control. And I have to laugh at myself because I catch myself doing every day. Like last night, I really I needed to go for a run. It was a stressful day, but it was -4 and it was friggin' snowing. Like, come on. I'm like, it's November 2nd. And I'm like, I'm not going for a run. And then I was like, Nicole, you can't control the weather. It's 5 months. You're just starting the fall and the winter. If you stop exercising now outside, which is your only option, you're not going to make it. So I convinced myself, you're going to feel better. You need to do this. And so I did go for a run. And my first minute outside, I was like, I'm so glad I did this. I needed the fresh air. I needed the break. And so, asking ourselves those simple questions can sometimes just allow us to say, oh yeah, I'm going to have to just let that go. And like so many other things in our caregiver journey, I'm just going to have to ride the waves of uncertainty.
Yes.
But we're really good at that. And I think that, valuing what we do well, I think is so important, such an important part of the conversation. Like, we are so resilient. We, as frustrating as uncertainty can be, like, we manage it really well. And I think this is part of my mission around changing the conversation around caregiving and celebrating our journey. Is it's so easy to beat up on ourselves. It's so easy to focus on, the bad behavior or the accident or this or that. But I think if we can just give ourselves a little more grace and compassion, it makes the journey so much more enjoyable.
And Nicole, I sympathize. I'm right there with you. I'm in Wisconsin. This week, though, I don't know what happened. It's my son's birthday, so maybe that's why it's his birthday week. We're going to have 60-degree weather because it already has snowed in Wisconsin and cold weather, and it's dark at 5 o'clock. And yes, it is daunting if you do not get out there and push yourself, especially in those climates. That's why I need to move to a different climate.
You know what? Let me tell you, I am like, ooh, I can see in the next, I'm like, I think I'm good. Like I've almost done 5 decades of like the 4 seasons and, Canadian winters, but I'm with you, Tammy. I'm like, I could be a same season kind of gal being close to the water on the beach.
Yes. Lots more tranquility there, but negative. I mean, you're much stronger than I. It's only November and it's negative by you. It's not negative here yet. So
that's okay. And then my last 2, self-care tips that I really want to share with the family caregivers is mantras, which are really good. And, interestingly enough, this can be combined with the hugging one. Is 2 of my go-to ones are, it's not her fault. Because Summer does have an intellectual disability. Sometimes when she does, start screaming or uncontrollable behavior, I will just say, I remind myself, it's not her fault. It's not her fault. It's not her fault. And I think that allows me just the 1 or 2 seconds to catch myself to react in a more negative manner. I mean, we're all human. I think that's such an important word. I mean, it's kind of laughable, like, of course we're human, but I think it's to really remind ourselves
Yeah.
it is friggin' 2020. It is November. You
Mhm.
know, there's so much going on that
Okay.
impacts our world, impacts our energy that we may not think of, we may not know about. And so I think it's just reminding ourselves that if you feel sad, it's okay. If you feel a little anger, it's okay. It's
Mhm.
just going back to what can I control? And part of that is okay, if I can give myself the gift of one or two mantras so that when I feel upset, I can start to calm myself. I think that's just a wonderful tool. And the other one is I love you. So, you know, we all love the people we're caring for.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that. And so, you know, as you can see, humor is a coping mechanism of mine. And I think by making light of this, not light of our journey, but just light of everything, because I find I can get really serious in all of just life,
Yeah.
serious with the appointments and with her IEP and just everything going on. And then it's not as fun. And it's like, my God, you know, I want to have fun, you know, and part of that is with those two mantras. And then the last one is, you know, we talk about gratitude all the time, but I want to change it up a little. You know, the importance of gratitude cannot be, you know, overstated. But
Mhm.
I challenge all of you family caregivers, is there one thing that you can be grateful for about COVID? And
Mhm.
I am not trying like to make light of this,
Right.
but it goes back to the uncertainty. One huge victory of COVID for us is that my daughter is now toilet trained. And
Mhm.
that is huge. Like, she turns
Yeah.
12 in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And if we wouldn't have been home, and trust me, we had tried before, we had worked with a behavioral therapist. And last year, I'm like, I need to bless and release. This will happen when it happens. And then one day in May, oh, she's just like, Mummy poo. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I go in, and it was just an everyday sense. And there's been no accidents, and it's been magical. And so it's just, you know, and I forget that sometimes. But
Mhm.
imagine for 11 years, I was changing her daily.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's tall and she's getting bigger, and that's a lot on my body. Like, I still put her on the change table. I don't need to do that now. And so it's really like, okay, COVID gave us that. And
Mhm.
so I just ask all of you, you know, is there something, even if it's a small, that
Yeah.
you could help change your perspective, and leave you with a little piece of satisfaction of what's going on globally, and maybe how it's impacted? It's strengthened the relationship with the person you're caring for. It's made you become self-aware, etc. So,
I think
yeah.
across the world for us as caregivers, I think that the pandemic has really, when you look at what we try to speak to people about being caregivers and the isolation and that feeling,
Yeah.
many people cannot relate. And I think the pandemic has made that
Mhm.
more relatable, because for a lot of us, we are isolated a lot of the time and hard to explain. But now, so many have experienced their own form of isolation, and I think that that the pandemic has given us that. But you have some awesome tips, Nicole.
Oh, thank
I'm gonna get off this and start breathing.
you.
um,
Well, I think that's just part of it, is like they're so simple, yet, and that's the beautiful thing, is that they're so accessible.
Mhm. Yes, and I love, when you speak to, finding laughter, and I think that for my tribe, I guess, as well, and the people that I surround myself with, you have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry, and I think that also finding your tribe, those positive people around you, or people with those similar things. And I look, Nicole, me and you have met off of a business platform.
Yeah.
you know? And so, but on that business platform, when I was seeking out and looking, who do I have similarities with? Who's in my tribe? Connecting with those people are so
Yeah.
important. Do the reach out because we're not alone. And even though you're there and I'm here, there's so many similarities that we can draw positivity off of each other, and find a
Agreed.
connection.
Yeah.
So Nicole, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way? Do you have any
Mhm.
new things on the horizon for 2021 you want to tell us about?
I always laugh. I'm like, I keep it simple. My website is NicoleDauz.com. On Instagram and Facebook, it's Nicole Dauz, and LinkedIn and Pinterest, I'm Self-Care for Caregivers. Um, well, what's really exciting is that I have an 8-week online course called the Self-Care for Caregivers Foundation course, and I am offering it free for all family caregivers throughout the month of November because
Yeah,
I think it's 8 weeks, and I thought, what a beautiful gift coming up to the holidays. Caregivers go through this, they get the foundations of self-care, they start 2021 with all of these tools and strategies to help get them to start the new year while we're still in a global pandemic. So all the info is on the front page of my website, NicoleDauz.com. I do one-on-one coaching that is broader than self-care. It's really caring for the caregiver, where I talk about accepting your role as a caregiver, awareness of your reality, and then alignment in your life. And in 2021, I hope to start my retreats again. COVID put a dampen on those. And also expanding into principles for parents who have children who are adults, so adults with intellectual disabilities. Because I find two things. A lot of the focus is for like the children with special needs and, 0 to, 21. But then after that, that's where people spend the majority of their life, right?
right.
Your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I really want to dive into that for 2021. But
Yeah.
it's, I just love working with family caregivers and supporting them because it's had such a profound impact on my life. And experience is my teacher. So I have a coach and I'm working with a coach, and I just, whatever I'm learning, then I just want to turn around and share those tools and strategies. And so there's lots of fun things on the horizon, but for now it's just, I have a free course. Please take advantage of it. Gift yourself,
Mhm.
self-care.
Amen to that. So with that, Nicole, I'm going to ask you when we log off of here. I know we have different comments and stuff that you can go back and you can answer, but then to also drop all your info below so people easily and accessibly can click on that on Facebook and get right to your site so that they can sign up for that course. And there's so much more to come for this month for both of us. So make sure that you're tuned in to the on air and to Nicole so that you can take advantage of all of those supportive services. So with that, I want to thank you all this morning for tuning in, that tuned in live to watch our show this morning, or whether you are catching this on the replay. We appreciate you. If you would like to become part of the private on-air advocate community, you can head up to the top of his Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will let you in, or to access our resources at onairadvocate.com. So with that, thank you again, Nicole.
Oh,
Take
you're so
care.
welcome.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you being here. All right. We will talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.